Previously on the Western.
If you are hearing my voice right now and have not listened to part 1 of this podcast, what the hell are you thinking? No, seriously, this is part 2 of a 2-part episode on the life, crimes, death, and conspiracy of pedo playboy Jeffrey Epstein. The show is titled Epstein's Mom Part 1, and it details his early life, his improbable path to wealth and power, his sleazy-ass associations, and his first convictions for child rape, and how it really wasn't much of a punishment, and ends with his arrest on July 6th of this year. You may not need to hear all that, but I put in rather a lot of work, so you should definitely go back and listen to it. And so, let's continue now with part 2 of Signed, Epstein's Mom. When last we left him, Jeff was being arrested by the FBI for sex trafficking charges, and they were serving search warrants on his properties in New York. You might think that an ostensibly rich, smart man such as Epstein would know that his past activities might result in a certain scrutiny and act in accordance with such an idea.
You understand. That would be wrong.
Thank God for his Wikipedia page, because tracking all this shit independently would mean a lot of work, and I'm not down for it. Quote, the search of his townhouse, the one in New York City, turned up evidence of sex trafficking and also found hundreds, perhaps thousands of sexually suggestive photographs of fully or partially nude females. Some of the photos were confirmed as those of underage females. In a locked safe, compact disc were found with handwritten labels, including the descriptions young name plus name, or Misk Nudes 1, and girls pics nude, unquote. Dude, you were literally convicted of having sex with minors, and you decorate your house with child porn? Are you stupid? Are you just so rich you think no one can touch you? Yeah, I know. Porque no dos. This does not even mention his procurer, his lady pimp, the unindicted co-conspirator, allegedly, Lady Ghislaine Maxwell. Quote, Epstein had met Ghislaine Maxwell, daughter of disgraced media baron Robert Maxwell, by 1991. Her dad had his own fucked up story before his suicide, which many found suspicious. Quote, Ghislaine Maxwell was implicated by several of Epstein's accusers as procuring and recruiting underage girls, in addition to once being Epstein's girlfriend. In a 2009 deposition, several of Epstein's household employees testified that Maxwell had a central role in both his public and private life, referred to as his main girlfriend, who also handled the hiring, supervising, and firing of staff around 1992. Maxwell went to ground after Epstein's arrest, when his only recently found at an In-N-Out Burger in L.A., apparently enjoying a double-double. She purportedly is under investigation for her role in finding, recruiting, and paying off various children raped by her boyfriend, mentor, partner, pimp Epstein. She has always disputed this, and Epstein vehemently denied her involvement in anything of the sort. A civil suit was filed against her by an Epstein victim on Wednesday, alleging that she was an integral part of how she was recruited by Epstein and subsequently raped. The Justice Department is hinting strongly that Maxwell is a suspect in ongoing investigations. After being denied bail, because come on, you know Epstein's ass would have been out of the country and in some island destination with no extradition treaty in a flash, he was booked into the Metropolitan Corrections Center in Manhattan, a federal holding facility for the serious criminals pending trial in New York City. Quote, on July 23rd, Epstein was found injured and semi-conscious at 1:30 a.m. on the floor of his cell, with marks around his neck that were suspected to be the result of either a suicide attempt or an assault. His cellmate was questioned about Epstein's condition. He denied knowledge of what happened. Epstein himself said he recollected nothing. According to NBC News, 2 sources said that Epstein might have tried to hang himself. A third said the injuries were not serious and could have been staged, while a fourth source said that an assault by a cellmate had not been ruled out, unquote. Following this incident, Epstein was placed on suicide watch and into segregation for approximately a week. According to sources, Epstein was removed from suicide watch shortly after that at the request of his lawyers and placed in a special observation status, requiring guards to physically check on him every 30 minutes. He was turned to the general population and placed in a cell. Despite the protocol that inmates coming off suicide watch have a cellmate, Epstein did not have a cellmate and was left alone in his cell.
Wait for it.
At 6:30 a.m. August 2nd, Epstein was found unconscious in his cell. Attempts at the scene to resuscitate him failed, and he was pronounced dead at the hospital an hour later. His presumptive cause of death is suicide by asphyxiation, which has been confirmed in an autopsy report just today.
Cool. Not shocking at all.
As you can imagine, this has caused a certain level of consternation. For decades, Jeffrey Epstein has been associated with convoluted conspiracy theories that say, oh, God, yeah, this is another one of those times when I just got to ask you to bear with me because this is all bullshit and totally not true, but a lot of stupid people believe it is. It says that there's a global cabal of the rich and powerful who trade in children for sex, which in Jeffrey Epstein's case...
Which is exactly what he did.
And that's fair. The conspiracy part is that this ring is full of royalty, wealthy, political leaders from around the world, Hollywood celebrities, and high-powered businessmen.
Almost there.
Which, wow, when you think about it, that's actually kind of what was going on here. Which, you know, when you think about it, is pretty much that everyone that Epstein ever hung out with?
I think we've got him.
Wait a minute. It's real. There is a vast conspiracy of pedophiles that reach to the highest pinnacle of power and no one can stop him except Donald Trump. Q is right. I'm sorry, that happens sometimes when you spend hours digging around conspiracy theories. The trick is to let it out before it builds up and poisons your brain. Epstein's entire life is fodder for conspiracy theories, and frankly, I see why. Doing the research for this show, I kept stopping to double check my sources because everything about the dude sounds like some shit a guy in a Q hat would write on a Trump rally sign. And then you add the number of controversial people, many of whom have their own reputations for being pussy hounds he's associated with over the years, and you've got a heady starter mix for conspiracy. I mean, put aside all the things we tell ourselves about about what people won't do and will do, and ask yourself this simple question. Knowing what you know about Bill Clinton, can you see him fucking a hot teenage girl on a millionaire's private jet?
Oh, yeah, totally.
I mean, that's not even a reach for most people. And even if you were a Clinton supporter. And Donald Trump? Oh, come on. Mr. Walk into the Miss Teen USA dressing rooms to see them naked. Mr. If she weren't my daughter, I'd be dating her. I mean, you actually kind of have to convince yourself that he wouldn't rape an underage.
That is both sad and true.
Keep in mind that Trump was actually sued in civil court by a woman claiming Trump raped her as a teenager at one of Epstein's parties. The suit was dismissed, but still, right now you are not having anything remotely resembling cognitive dissonance trying to hold the thought of Donnie raping a teenage girl. Trust me. Prince Andrew? Dude, the British royal family has been raping children for centuries. The list of shitty men associated with Epstein is so full of people who have extraordinary wealth, power, and influence and lack anything resembling human decency. It's long and it's distinguished. And I know because I told you all the names in the first part of the show. It's hard for any reasonable person to think that maybe there's something to the crazy idea that Epstein was part of something bigger, something more sinister, that the kind of people we are talking about here are the kind of people who could be part of such a thing, because we all know they would be if it existed. So, does it exist? Is there an international pedophile conspiracy? Honest to fucking God, I'm going with probably. But not in the way people think that it exists. I mean, they don't have meetings and wear robes or anything. They just fly around in private jets and share children to rape. The robes would make it totally creepy or something. So did this cabal kill him to keep him quiet? Well, the Dunson chief retweeted the old trope about the Clinton body count, and that blew up on Twitter, and various right-wing dipshits started shouting Arkansas, the term for people allegedly killed by the Clintons. But honestly, we can take the Clintons off the table right now because They have little or nothing left to lose. Ain't a single damn Democrat that wants anything to do with either of them in 2020. Bill, because he's a lecherous puss hound that raped at least one woman back when that sort of thing was cool, I guess, and sexually manipulated a 20-something intern into blowing him while he was president. There's very little reputation for Bill left to lose here, people. If we found out that he raped a 15-year-old on the Lolita Express, sure, I guess a few of us would be pissed about it, but he ain't gonna serve no time for it and just go on the big pile of shitty things that William Jefferson Clinton did that we all know about but just can't be bothered to deal with. And Hillary, you think she's going to play a part in politics going forward? The person who lost to Donald Trump? Not even Joe Biden is going to have her trot out to campaign for him in 2020. No, the Clintons are way past the twilight of their political career and influence and well into the long dark night. The Clinton body count is pure bullshit because Anthony Weiner ain't dead and people have had plenty of chances to make an accident happen to that asshole over the past few years. Donald Trump? Is Trump the kind of person who would have someone murdered in federal custody to hide his crimes?
I'm gonna go with yes again.
But is he the kind of person who could actually pull it off?
Oh, hell no.
Based on the past few years, based on his life, Trump would give the order to have Epstein whacked, but then promptly tweet about it to his millions of bot followers. He would hire the least competent hitmen and then stiff them after the job was done. Hell, when I think about it, Trump probably did try to have Epstein whacked already, and it was the thing in late July where he got a couple of light bruises, because that's the quality of people that Trump hires to do his bidding. But Clinton and Trump are hardly the only ones who might want Jeff Epstein dead. The royal family certainly has a history of eliminating inconvenient problems like Jeffrey. It's plausible they arranged to have Mr. Epstein dispatched. Hell, they didn't even need to send someone to do it. Epstein met with his lawyers 12 hours a day every day. All they needed to do was pass the message of what might happen to him should he choose not to take the easy way out, and there are worse ways to go in prison than hanging yourself. But what if, just what if, I told you that this goes deeper than that Epstein was a part of an ancient and powerful order that has wielded power before even the beginning of human history. That's right, pod friends, because Epstein's sex cult has deeper ties to the massive satanic pedophile cults that harness the power of his crimes for their dark magic rituals. Actually, no. Fuck that. I'm not going to give these idiots even the time of my fucking jokes. The Q people are just fucking morons. Look, I don't believe in massive global conspiracy theories. There's no Illuminati or even a fucking Pentaveret for that sake.
Well, it's a well-known fact, Sonny Jim, that there's a secret society of the 5 wealthiest people in the world, known as the Pentaveret, who run everything in the world, including the newspapers, and meet tri-annually at a secret country mansion in Colorado known as the Meadows.
The Trilateral Commission, which Epstein was actually a member of, is an affront for reptilian aliens. The Council on Foreign Relations, which I must also admit Epstein was a member of, is an affront for gray aliens to manage the Tau Treaty. The bathhouse on Pedophile Island that looks like an Egyptian temple is not a Levian edifice for the invocation of set and ritual magic, and the Queen did not send an MI6 agent into the MCC with a body double to replace Epstein in order to smuggle the living Epstein out to protect Prince Andrew. This is all unprovable claptrap, flamboyant nonsense people use to fill in the blanks of a story that is so wildly improbable, so thoroughly reprehensible, and morally bankrupt that the outlandish is far more preferable than the fucking truth. And that truth is really, really simple. Rich and powerful people do shit like rape underage girls, launder money, extort one another, and occasionally arrange for convenient accidents all the time because the hyper-wealthy can get away with it. It's not a conspiracy. It's right out there in the open. The only time rich people are held accountable for their actions is when they are so blatantly obvious in their transgressions that they can't be ignored. like Jeffrey Epstein. He went back to jail after abusing his get-out-of-jail-free card. He didn't quietly leave the country to go somewhere where he could continue doinking young girls on the sly. He continued to do it where everyone could see it, and eventually people saw it. He killed himself because he couldn't face losing control of his power and wealth, not because he wanted to keep secrets.
Well, I think that just about sums it up, don't you?
Oh no, we're not done here, because I'm going to reveal to you the actual conspiracy that led directly to Jeffrey Epstein's suicide. The web of lies, disinformation, subterfuge, and misdirection that the government, from the smallest municipality all the way up to the feds, are hiding from you in plain sight.
That's concerning.
The Metropolitan Correction Center is one of the highest profile jails in the United States. It houses the most notorious people awaiting trial in the country. It recently held El Chapo Guzman, the Mexican drug lord, during his trial. It holds or has held notorious terrorists from Al-Qaeda, the more domestic variety of terrorists like Paul Manafort. And it is a fucking hellhole of the first degree. It makes Rikers Island look like a fucking summer camp. From an article from the BBC, quote, "The jail was built to accommodate 474 inmates, but held 663 male prisoners at the time of Epstein's death. According to a statement from the Federal Bureau of Prisons, prisoners have described seeing large rats in their cells, air conditioner units so noisy that it's impossible to sleep, and absent of any natural light or sanitary water. As he was sent down for the rest of his life, Mexican drug cartel Joaquin El Chapo Guzman took the opportunity to call the place torture." Brooklyn College professor Janine Theo Harris has written extensively about the MCC and told the Gothamist website in June that the jail resembles conditions found in countries such as Iran or Russia. Calling the place a gulag, she described the conditions as filthy, freezing, no natural light, isolation so extreme that you're punished for speaking through walls, unquote. Now, some of you may be saying, well, it's a jail, Dave. It's hardly going to be nice. And I get that. I do. And I'm not saying the MCC should be club fed, but you also have to realize that most of the people in the MCC have not been convicted of a crime. They are accused of a crime and waiting trial, and we are treating them worse than they will be treated if they are convicted. And the special housing unit where Epstein was held is the worst of the worst. From an article in Gotham is, quote, "Toilet waste and feces were all over the floors of the cells, common areas, and other departments on the floor, and the female inmates were the ones who had to clean it up, all without proper equipment." One detainee wrote in a message, "The woman, whose name is being withheld at her request out of fear of retaliation, described how her floor mates got feces on their hands, legs, faces, and hair all over, and said the difficulty breathing due to the smell, it was indescribable." Kelman said that it makes little difference to the COs at the MCC whether the inmate is billionaire financier or not. Everyone is regarded with the same. The prisoners would be lucky if they were treated like dirt under someone else's shoe, but they're not even treated that well, unquote. The MCC is so understaffed that guards are working multiple double shifts a week, and non-corrections officer staff are being pressed into guard duties. And indeed, the two guards who were supposed to be watching Epstein that night fell asleep on the night of his suicide and falsified records to hide the fact. Other inmates reported screaming from Epstein's cell in the middle of the night that was never checked on by the guards. Protocols for dealing with prisoners on special watch were routinely ignored, and the warden in charge was reassigned pending investigation. The two guards who were supposed to be watching Epstein that night are fired. This is why Jeffrey Epstein is dead right now. Not some shadowy conspiracy of elites, just plain old incompetence and corruption. And the MCC is hardly alone. The entire prison system in this country is endemic with similar problems. We have too many people in jails, not enough space to hold them, and a society that refuses to address that most of these people do not need to be in prison in the first place. We have literally made keeping people in prison an industry. It's a money-making venture for private companies whose only interest is in profit, and the word rehabilitation or restitution aren't in their fucking dictionaries. We have 2.2 32 million people in prison in this country, most of them for nonviolent offenses and wildly skewed in numbers compared to their demographics towards people of color. We have criminalized being poor and non-white, and corporations are making money off it. It's slavery in all but name. And if a few of them die, well, that's okay because there'll always be more prisoners. Ken White, lawyer, former U.S. prosecutor, and the inestimable Pope Hat on Twitter, wrote an article for The Atlantic this week with this paragraph, quote, "Americans who believe in their justice system assert that it's obvious that he was murdered and that the jailers could not possibly be so incompetent, cruel, or indifferent as to let such a high-profile prisoner commit suicide. Here to help you evaluate that claim are 32 short stories about in-custody deaths or near deaths in America. These stories don't mention Jeffrey Epstein, but they're about him. Epstein was incarcerated in the United States of America, and this is how the United States of America, the mightiest and richest nation there ever was, has been, treats incarcerated people. When you say there is no way that the guards could be so reckless, so indifferent, so malicious as to let someone as important as Epstein die, unquote. This is how 32 Americans respond." He goes on to write about 32 horrific stories of people dying in prison or jails because of incompetence or downright malfeasance. From cancer patients dying shrieking in agony because they didn't get their pain medications, to inmates dying from dehydration because no one gave them water, to being boiled alive in a shower, to a veteran with a Purple Heart who died in Pueblo, Colorado of a drug overdose while the guard laughed. This was recorded on a jail camera, including the audio of the jokes the guard made while the hero fucking died. A baby born 14 weeks premature to an inmate died by drowning in a toilet while his mother screamed for help from the guards that did not come. These are just a tiny sampling of White's tiny sampling, and the stories just like that or worse happen every single fucking day in this country, and no one gives a shit that we are treating human beings, regardless of the fact if they committed a crime or not, and most of the people that are treated like this have not been convicted of a crime, and no one fucking cares. So I tell you what, if you're pissed because you think there's a conspiracy going on, I'll tell you there is. If you're pissed that you think Jeffrey Epstein escaped justice, let me tell both sides of you, libs and fucking conservatives, that I've got a suggestion for you. Maybe if you're so concerned about conspiracies or you're so concerned about justice, you start with your own town, your local sheriff's department. Ask around and see who's put the noose made out of prison sheets around their neck in your locale. I bet you find one. Ask around about abusive guards or terrible conditions in your county lockup, because you'll find them. If you want justice, start with your local district attorney and elect one that stops putting people in jail for minor drug crimes or unpaid parking tickets. Start with eliminating cash bail that keeps poor people in jail because they're poor. Stop looking for monsters and massive conspiracy theories and look for the ones under your own fucking bed. Because our justice system in this country has fuck and all to do with justice and has everything to do with keeping the poor in check and so frightened that they don't do anything about being poor. And if the price we pay is the occasional billionaire pedophile that everyone wants dead, punching his fucking clock in his cell, well, that's a price that the system is more than happy to fucking pay. That is it for their show this week. I did not set out to write a massive, sprawling epic about pedophiles in the justice system. I just wanted to debunk some nonsense and then bring up that Ken White piece. But this story was so fucking bizarre, so unlikely, that it turned into a monstrosity of the show. I have done two-parters before, but never anything like this. They were always intended and done in different weeks, but I had to break this one up just to keep the show under an hour, which is crazy, because I don't like working that hard. But then the entire Epstein life story is crazy, and I still don't believe in conspiracy theories, but I admit that if there were such things, then Jeffrey Epstein would be a part of one. Speaking of conspiracies, if you rate and review this show wherever you get your pods, you will spread the secret message that we are trying to disseminate for our masters in the cabal. My coded check-ins to the gray aliens can be found on Twitter at @the_hell_podcast and the show name on Facebook. The manifestos of our dark oligarchs subliminally insert into each and every show I do can be found at the show name on SoundCloud and at whatthehellpodcast.com. So for me, Dave, Worshipful Master Bledsoe, producer,
I've got a second-hand apron.
Gavin, and all the fictional aspirate masons on this show, we want to say, Madonna is trying to tell you people she knows everything. Read the lyrics to the song. We'll see you all next week.
It's not pentagrams or witchcraft. It's not triangles, stacks of cash. Black magic or Gaga, Gucci or Prada, riding on a golden cat.
All seeing eyes watching tonight. That's what it is, truth and the light. All seeing eyes watching tonight. Nothing to hide, secrets inside. It's like everybody in this body shining like Illuminati. It's like everybody in this body shining like Illuminati. It's the enlightenment that started it all. The founding fathers wrote it down on the wall. And now the media's misleading us all. Turn right and turn wrong. It's time to dance and turn this rock into something. So let the fire burn, this music is bumping. We're gonna live forever, love never dies. It starts tonight.
Behind the curtain of the New World Order. It's not platinum encrypted corners. It's not Isis or the Phoenix. Pyramids of Egypt don't make it into something sorted. It's not Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. It's not the Google of the United States. It's not Bieber or LeBron, Clinton or Bond, or anyone you love to hate.
All seeing eyes watching tonight.
I have no ending for this, so I take a small bow.